So we have two different services operating here. So I have two Python files. I have a producer and a consumer. So let's make this a bit bigger. My producer job here is pretty simple. We just have a string with the key in because we're going to use it a few times. I've got a Python list with some random jobs that need doing. So housekeeping understands things like cleaning, room service, taxis, and so on. I connect to Redis. I'm going to delete anything that was at that key before just to make sure that that key is available to use. So delete the jobs key. Then I'm going to go into a loop forever and basically say I want to make a job, which is going to be a Python dictionary, and it's just going to have a random room number and a random one of those cleaning or room service things. I'm going to convert that to JSON stringify it, so I convert it to a string. And then I'm going to push it into Redis, so into the list. So what we see is I'm going to use the lpush command. We're going to have the list key, jobs, and the payload of that stringified object. And then basically this code is just going to sit there and go to sleep for a little while, and every now and then it's going to create a new job. So if I start running this, what we can expect to happen, let's start this up. So it's off. So it's started running. It's added a job, and when we add a job to a queue or we push something onto a list, Redis tells us how long the list is. So every time it adds one, it's telling us how long the list is. Obviously, multiple things could be pushing onto this list. So it might not always increase by one. So let's just stop that for a second. So we've had this running now. So we want to see what's in Redis here. So I'm going to use the Redis Insight tool here, which is the graphical way of looking in the database. And I'm going to refresh it. And we have a key up here called jobs. And what we can see here is that this jobs key contains all of these things. So it's a list that contains all of these jobs that the producer put on there. So what we then need to do is, if I run our consumer, which we'll have a look at in a minute, that's going to go and start doing the jobs. So it's currently doing the first job, and there's a backlog of 4. It's doing the second one now. And if I refresh this, what we'll see here is that the number of jobs is disappearing from Redis as the queue gets shorter. So the consumer's pulling things off the list, and it's now finished. So it's checking for jobs, and there was nothing to do. So it's just going to periodically check there, and there'll be nothing to do. So if I refresh this now, we actually get what looks like an error. Something went wrong. So where I said creating a list, you just push the first thing onto the list and Redis creates it for you, it'll clean up after itself as well. So if we pull everything off of the list again, pop it all off of the list, then Redis will basically delete the list when it's empty, because there's no need to store anything there. So if I run the producer again, it'll recreate the job and it'll start doing it. So if I do duplicate this tab, and so the consumer's over there on the left, it's got nothing to do. And when I start the producer, it adds jobs to the queue, and then the consumer will take a look in the queue and go, oh, I need to do extra pillows to room 183, and then room 270 needs extra towels. So these are now talking to each other through Redis. It's the only way that they don't know anything about each other. We could start multiple of these consumers to catch up a backlog, and they don't know anything about the consumer. They just know that this key here exists in Redis, which it's still not going to have anything in it because our consumer is working away as fast as it can. So if I stop the consumer there and let a backlog build up, you'll see that this key rebuilds. So there we go. We've got 2 jobs. And this is the only thing that they both know about. So how does our consumer work from a code perspective? It's also pretty simple. So again, we know about the key jobs. That is the Redis key that we want to talk to. It's got a list. We connect to Redis, and then we go into an infinite loop. And I'm using a feature of most Redis clients here that allow us to send multiple commands to Redis in one network round trip. So if we want to send multiple commands, we start a pipeline and then we send a couple of commands. So I'm basically saying the BR pop command is get the thing off the tail of the list and block for a period of time if there's nothing there. So it'll wait for like 5 seconds, and if nothing's there, it'll just give up. And if something's there, it'll pop it immediately. So it gets the value off of the list. That's a string. And then we're asking it how long's the list afterwards in that pipeline. And we're sending this to Redis and say, hey, do both of these commands. So when we get the results back, we have a look at the first result in the resulting list is going to be this BR pop command. So it'll either be nothing because there was nothing in the queue, or it'll be a job. And the second one will be the number of jobs that are remaining in the queue, so the length of the list. And then all we do is just print those out, and then this one goes to sleep for a little while, goes back to the top of the loop and checks Redis again to see if anything's there. So this is sort of polling, but it's using the blocking feature here in Redis, so we can block for an amount of time. And I could implement like a decaying retry here to say if there's nothing to do, wait 10 seconds next time. If there's nothing to do, wait 20 seconds. And then after so long, just give up trying, because maybe housekeeping is never going to make any jobs anymore.